Hey fellow freelancers, Johnny5 Alive here. In today's Anthem video, we're going to be showcasing all of the Storm Javelin abilities, what they do, how they look, what they combo well with, and what kind of builds you can create with the Storm. So if you're new to the game and thinking about jumping into a Storm Javelin, this is the video for you. So stay tuned and let's get into it. Alright, so before we jump in, I want to make a disclaimer that all the skills and abilities you're about to see are from my time with the VIP demo. All abilities could be subject to change, so damage numbers and balance should be expected, but generally speaking, I believe the usage of these abilities and their animations should remain roughly the same for launch. So let's get into it. The fantasy of the Storm is that of the Space Wizard. Using science and magic, this Space Wizard is able to conjure the three primary elements, fire, lightning, and ice, into powerful spells to lay devastation to the battlefield. There are a few things that make this Javelin unique, which tie into his spellcaster fantasy. The first very notable attribute is his ability to hover almost infinitely. Not fly, but hover. His overheating for flying is similar to all the other Javelins, but when he switches to hover mode, his overheat charges at a turtle's pace, allowing him to rain down destruction from the sky for a very long time. While you may think this will expose him to damage, the Storm gets a secondary shield while in hover mode, making him a little less vulnerable while hovering. But don't think you are a hovering god that can just float above a massive battle, as you will be dropped like a fly quickly. It's best to hover near high cover or above ground near your shield wall or a ranger's bulwark point for added defense. The Storm also has a unique dash in that it is not a dash, but instead a unique teleport blink ability, allowing him to phase around in the blink of an eye, dodging incoming attacks. Of all the other Javelins, the Storm's ability set also requires him to be spending majority of his time casting rather than shooting. In fact, this Javelin will almost never use weaponry at all, especially with a large loadout of endgame components reducing cooldown times on abilities. This is in fact the complete opposite class of the Rager, who's shooting weapons nearly 95% of the time. So if gunplay isn't your style and you love elemental magic, then this Javelin is for you. The Storm's abilities are broken down into two sections, blast seals and focus seals. Don't worry, I will be showing off all these abilities, how they look and what they do in a couple of minutes. First, it's important to note that some of these abilities are primers and others are detonators. Primers are able to coat the victim in a status effect of the ability's element type. For example, Ice Storm will coat the enemy in ice. Should also know that priming will not work against shielded targets, which is displayed by a blue bar over the enemy's head. Break that and you can prime away. Detonators are best used on primed targets, as they will give you a visual combo when executed properly. You can detonate off allies' priming ability or set yourself up with a build allowing you to prime and detonate your own combos. All Javelins receive their own unique effect when detonating or comboing off of primed targets. The Storm special combo effect spreads the element prime effect to nearby enemies, which means if you prime one target with ice, detonate it, the ice effect will spread to nearby enemies, freezing them all. This in fact makes the Storm the best support class for priming targets for allies to combo off of. I feel this is a discussion in and of itself that I would love to get a lot deeper into, as I see many people misconceiving the Storm as a glass cannon, when in fact his detonating combo abilities are actually the weakest of all four Javelin. This doesn't mean he can't do good damage, it simply means if played well on a team and focusing on priming or spreading priming with his combo spreading effect, he allows other classes to be even deadlier at wiping out targets. The Storm is a team player Javelin. You set him up, they knock him down. A key player Storm will quickly become everybody's best friend. Let's just be sure not to let this become the thankless job like healers in Warcraft. So be sure to high-five your Storms for letting you obliterate your opposition. Like all Javelins, the Storm also has a melee ability, Fiery Strike. The Storm disappears and teleports into its enemy with a fiery Hadouken-like punch. A very satisfying ability if I do say so myself. While this is a fire attack, it also is a detonator, so you will not be spreading fire to enemies you hit, but rather the element type they are primed with. As we discussed earlier, the Storm spreads effects to nearby enemies with his detonator, and this melee attack is in fact that. So quickly freeze an enemy in the center of a crowd, blink in with your fiery finisher, and watch everything around turn to ice, setting up your allies with a massive combo opportunity. Again, another great way the Storm can support his allies with some serious crowd control. Elemental Storm Ultimate. The Storm charges up, fully heals himself, becomes invulnerable to attacks, then a circle indicator appears allowing him to cast one of each element type, which also prime. Drop lightning, fire, and ice, and press one more time to detonate all three effects for a combo. That's right, the Storm is the only Javelin with a priming ultimate, and if done quickly enough, it's also a Detonator. So even if you're running a priming support build, you still have combo opportunities between using your melee attack and your ultimate. So no need to ever feel left out on the combo fun goodness. The ultimate feels really good and fitting for the Storm in the sense that you are raining down elemental mayhem from the skies, and for quite some time too. I do, however, hope to see the developers add in modifiers or alternate ultimate abilities, as I would love to see an ice-only Blizzard version of the ultimate to pair well with my Storm and Glacial Spear loadout, turning me into an ice-based mage. Here's to hoping. Support systems. All Javelins have a third ability button which falls under the support systems. Each get only 2 to choose from. The Storm has Quickening Field. This creates a stationary circular aura that when hovering or standing inside will increase the Storm or allies cooldown recharge rate by 20%, allowing the Javelin inside to cast abilities more frequently. While awesome, I wouldn't necessarily use this with just any ability set, as some skills you may not feel the benefit as much. The Storm has multiple abilities that have several charges, which each charge shares separate cooldowns, such as Frost Shards for example. Run a pair of abilities like this and you should be able to constantly rain down hell on your enemies without any downtime or waiting while inside of your quickening field. Wind Wall creates a wall of wind at a set position that blocks projectiles. This is very similar to the Ranger's Bulwark Point, but instead of a sphere, it is a wall. It can also only be deployed on the ground, but it is quite tall, so the Storm is still able to hover behind it without any troubles. This is a great support ability as you can block choke points, protect allies, and it is easily visible for allies to spot if they are in danger and need to retreat to cover. It can also be deployed in front of a downed ally to allow you to repair them without any risk of falling yourself. Just one more ability making the Storm a team player. Okay, time to get into the fun stuff. Let's showcase and talk about all the abilities. Let's start off by looking at the elemental effects this Javelin has access to. First major thing to point out here, the Storm is the only Javelin that doesn't have access to Blast, Impact, or Venom abilities. However, he easily compensates with the most elemental abilities of all Javelins combined. If you're including his ultimate, he has 4 lightning abilities, 5 ice abilities, and 5 fire abilities. It's also important to note that he has the most priming abilities of all Javelins with 6, thus truly making him an elemental Storm and team player for combos. So now that you have a better understanding of the Storm's elemental fury, let's take a closer look at these abilities, starting with the blast seals. First up is Lightning Strike. Calls down a bolt of electric energy on a target location and is a combo detonator. This ability is a large area of effect lightning detonator, great for doing damage to groups of clustered enemies. And lightning is also great for ripping through shielded enemies as well. One thing to note here, this is unfortunately the only detonator in the blast seal bracket, which doesn't give the Storm a whole lot of room to play around with comboing off of focus seals. And what's even more unfortunate, there are no focus seals that AoE prime, which would have made for a great AoE trash clearing build. This isn't all that bad, however. Remember, the Storm can spread effects with his detonator, meaning you can freeze one enemy in a pack, lightning strike the middle, and spread the ice effect to everyone nearby, while also doing massive lightning damage simultaneously. This ability naturally pairs well with Shock Burst, a lightning primer, giving you pure lightning build out. However, I found it to be the weakest when compared to fire and ice builds, so while this ability is fun, impactful, and pretty to look at, and not the most devastating, it still has its uses and I wouldn't count this one out. Ice Storm delivers bursts of frost on a target that build up to an icy explosion, and this ability primes. I find this one has a very interesting mechanic. You must hold down the ability button and watch a series of ice blasts nuke the target. If held long enough until the bar turns yellow, a final strong ice explosion is unleashed. At any point you let go, however, the ability is wasted and put back on cooldown. So be sure to use it in times of opportunity, otherwise you may have a half-casted sloppy attack when you find yourself running for cover. It's also worth mentioning that this ability will not prime instantly either. From my testing, it appears to have various rates of priming depending on the enemy hit. Stronger armor units such as turrets and hulks require a full full volley and the final blast to freeze, whereas smaller trash units may only need 2 or 3 volleys to freeze, allowing you to switch to a new target, freezing multiple enemies with 1 full volley. This ability naturally pairs well with Glacial Spear, which is an ice detonator, giving you a pure frost build. Due to its pulse-like rapid fire feel, it also pairs well with Burning Orb Detonator and your support skill Quickening Field. This combination allows you to send out rapid amounts of fire and ice. Flame Burst creates a fiery explosion on target location. This ability is neither a primer or a detonator. I really enjoy the feel of this ability, as it comes equipped with 5 charges on separate cooldowns, meaning you could deliver 1 small blast very often or hold it down and unleash 5 massive blasts rapidly while still gaining charges back quickly if you need another one to finish something off. If you've seen any of my other Javelin overviews, you will notice a good amount of the non-primer, non-detonator abilities do not seem that appealing. However, this one, I have to say, feels really strong for clearing trash and even does well when all 5 blasts are unleashed on a larger targets. Because it is fire, it'll still do damage over time and also bonus damage to armored units, while still being amazing for damaging packs of trash. Overall, this feels like a very solid ability, and because of the multi-charge cooldown, it works fantastic with your Quickening Field support skill. Ice Blast hurls several large chunks of ice and is an ice primer. This ability essentially feels like an ice shotgun, short to mid-range spread, and freezes targets in place. A bit odd for the Storm, I would say, as he is not exactly the best close combat fighter. However, this one is ice and essentially freezes everything in place or shreds shielded units. This allows the Storm to follow up with a fiery strike melee attack and quickly teleport out. When paired with Frost Shards, another ice primer, the Storm is suddenly a legitimate close combat ice warrior, as everything he strikes with his melee will trigger his special combo effect, spreading ice to even more targets, essentially turning him into the melee shatter combo Ice King. This is ridiculously fun and viable too. Other than this one particular build though, I don't really see Ice Blast working all that well with the other focus seals, as again, close range isn't exactly the greatest for the Storm. Living Flame creates a beam of living fire that seeks enemies even through walls and is a primer. What's not clearly explained in the description is that it sort of bounces around enemy to enemy, setting damage over time, fire priming status to them all. It also appears to fizzle out the longer it travels, meaning if you throw it across the map at a turret, it doesn't seem that effective at all, as it may fizzle out entirely or at best only have 1 impact. I found this ability actually works best when fired at a group of enemies from close range, allowing it to get the max amount of bounces and blaze effects, which oddly enough sounds like it would work really well with that melee build I spoke about when covering the last ability, Ice Blast. You could alternate from Living Flame and Frost Shards, creating various fire and ice combo effects off of your melee ability. I still think the stun locking capabilities of ice only melee would be better for surviving a melee build though. Having said that, Living Flame is naturally paired well with Burning Orb Fire Detonator, as you prime fire and detonate with fire, thus creating a pure fire build. If you're looking to make a shooter from Storm who focuses on gunplay primarily, having this Living Flame primer and Glacial Spear Detonator is actually a really good self combo, as both of these are cast instantly, allowing you to throw them out and return back to firing guns, giving you a similar playstyle to that of the Ranger Javelin. Okay, that's all the blast seals. Let's take a closer look at the focus seals, starting with Frost Shards. Shoots a stream of target seeking ice shards. This ability is a primer and comes equipped with 10 shards, all on separate cooldowns, thus allowing the Storm to always have some sort of rapid ice freezing effect readily available at all times, which is another ability that works amazingly well with Quickening Field support skill, and as mentioned earlier, works amazing with Ice Blast to create a chain freezing melee Ice King combo build. I personally really enjoy these little icicles. While not devastating or best eye candy to gawk over, they are great for freezing up enemies and supporting teammates with combo opportunities, while also working great to set up your own combo using your melee attack. The one downside is there's only 1 Blast Seal Detonator, which is the Lightning Strike AoE, and I don't really feel these are the best pairing combo effect, but they're still an option. I personally think Ice Storm and Frost Shards, both being primers, is the best way to play as a combo king team support role. You will freeze and prime everything for your allies to do devastating damage. You will still have an option to drop down with your melee, shatter, and spread the effects to even more enemies, making you that much better at priming further. If using this ability with another primer, be sure to tell your allies to run pure Detonators. You won't regret it. Burning Orb throws rapid bolts of fire, or choose to charge up for a more powerful exploding fireball, and this ability is a detonator. I find this one really interesting and versatile. It comes equipped with 10 charges, all on separate cooldowns, allowing you to rapidly spam and generate more constantly. When charging up for that big fireball, it consumes 5 charges, meaning you can fully charge 2 big fireballs or spam out 10 little fireballs, or throw a big fireball and pepper a few small ones to finish off the target. This gives the ability tons of flexibility, and yet another one that plays amazingly well with quickening field support skill. As mentioned earlier, this naturally pairs well with Living Flame for a pure fire build. But personally, I think it works best with Ice Storm, as both have peppering cast style to them, and both work really well with Quickening Field, turning you into a machine gun of fire and ice. Shock Burst fires an electric orb capable of bouncing off walls and seeking targets. This ability is Lightning Primer. I never actually realized this thing bounced off walls until just now, so unfortunately I don't think I have any footage to show that off. Seems useful while hiding in cover recharging your shields, but I don't think it's very practical past that particular use. Because this ability is lightning, it will do bonus damage to shielded targets, and when detonated causes area of effect damage, which means it pairs great with Lightning Strike to create a pure lightning build that can shred shielded targets and trash. But when compared to the pure fire and ice builds, this one feels the weakest. Shock Burst just does a measly amount of damage to anything not shielded. I didn't really enjoy this ability all that much, and it doesn't have a whole lot of combo potential, unfortunately. Glacial Spear fires a powerful blast of icy energy and is a detonator ability. As mentioned in the description, it fires a powerful blast of ice. While it doesn't freeze enemies due to it not being a primer, it just does an insane amount of damage. Oddly enough, even to armored units, and completely tears through any shields instantly. This is naturally paired well with Ice Storm Primer to give you the pure Ice Mage build out, and in my opinion is the strongest single element pair of the 3, as Ice Storm Prime freezes enemies in place and Glacial Spear will obliterate it with a combo. Being that you are a storm, the ice effect will spread to anyone near the combo, setting you and your allies up for more combo potential. At this point you could easily alternate between freezing combo and fiery strike melee, anything still frozen, back out and start again with another freeze combo. Easily the best self-sufficient storm loadout, and still has some team combo potential. As mentioned earlier, it also pairs well with Living Flame, as if you want to throw out your skills quickly and use your long downtime to fire guns, it'll make you similar to the Ranger in playstyle. Last but not least, Arc Burst fires a lightning bolt that arcs to 2 nearby targets after impact. This ability is neither a primer or a detonator. This one requires a little bit of a charge up time, and in fact feels identical to the Ranger's Pulse Blast. As mentioned in the description, it arcs to 2 nearby enemies. The unfortunate thing about this, the ability feels really weak against single targets, and majority of the time you will be firing at single targets, as the AI in this game is good at spreading out. It does however feel to be doing more single target damage than Shock Burst, but Shock Burst is a primer after all. It is lightning, so it does rip through shielded targets, and if they are grouped up, you will rip through multiple shields. But again, that's a rare occasion. Therefore, I feel this ability gets the backbench for me. If it were up to me, this would be a primer, and the Shock Burst would have been the big mega lightning hitter. At least that way, I think both of these lightning skills would get more of a use. As of right now, I think lightning element is feeling a bit weak on the Storm compared to fire and ice. So to wrap things up, guys, I think the Storm has the most build opportunities of all 4 Javelins. However, it's quantity and not entirely quality. There are 2 builds I see being really good for solo, and a priming build for team play. The rest seem to be less fun filler builds. It's good having options though, so the Storm comes out on top with lots of fun options. But at the end of the day, I feel the Storm will excel best as a support primer for team combos, as he seems to have the lowest damage output of all 4 Javelins, but he creates the most powerful team combo damage. Therefore, played cooperatively, I think a Storm can really take a team to the next level. Boom. There you have it, everyone. That's a complete breakdown of the Storm. If you found this video helpful, informative, or entertaining in any way, please be sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more Anthem videos. If you guys want to learn more about the other Javelins, I will have links in the description to them, and you can also find them on my channel. And also, please come join us on Discord so you can have an alliance of players to play with at release. Link is also in the description. All right, fellow freelancers, if you enjoyed this show, please check out my Patreon page to support it further. And that's going to do it for me here today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye now.